What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with Adam Ronis, bringing you another edition of FA Sports Talk. Adam, again, we're slowly grinding towards the beginning of the return of sports. As we approach that, how are you feeling about things?
I'm trying to be optimistic. Obviously, every day new news drops, and we're seeing cases go up in certain states. But just hoping that everything that has been put in place works out well. So we're 3 weeks from the start of the baseball season,
Hmm.
which sounds kind of odd, and we're getting another a week after that we get basketball returning. So I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping this all works out, and we could see these games in action.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't think we would even maybe see a baseball season, so at least we will at least have 60 games, something to occupy us a little bit during the week while we're waiting for everything else to go on. Before we touch upon other sports, I want to jump into fantasy football. I think that's been at least on the forefront of a lot of our minds while we're waiting for everything to get into it. We obviously know Cam Newton signed with the Patriots. We did a best ball draft last night. I actually was able to get him as QB 16 overall, round 12. He's my QB 2. I took Matt Stafford ahead of him. I know you and Howard touched upon this with your FA Sports Talk earlier this week, but tell me exactly again how are you feeling about Newton? Where do you think that he fits in your projections? Do you think where I took him was a fair value?
Yeah, I think that's a fair value. I think that's the range I have him in right now. I think obviously a lot has come down to his health, and we're probably not going to see anything. NFL has already cut the preseason down from 4 to 2 games. I know there's some speculation out there that he's not going to start. I don't see that. I know they didn't guarantee him. I think they guaranteed him 550K, and
Yeah.
obviously there's incentives to build that up.
Mhm.
Uh, but Cam Newton has a lot to prove, and if he's healthy, we've seen it before. Every time he's been healthy, he's been a top 10 quarterback. Now, the key is, he's 31 years old. He's gotten beat up. How much does he run? Because a lot of his fantasy value is tied to his legs. He's never been an accurate passer. He's only top 30 touchdowns once in that MVP season when he had 35. So everyone's going to say, oh, well, there's not great weapons there. But Cam Newton's never had great weapons. When he was in Carolina, he just never had a great core of receivers around him. So I think he can have success. And that's the range I would put him in right now. And I could see him easily moving up depending on what happens as we get closer to the season. Do we see video of him? How does he look on the field? But I definitely think he can break into that low QB1 range if he's healthy. But right now, I'd probably put him right around the 15 to 17 range. We know there's depth at quarterback, but where you got him is fine. And I'm a little surprised. I think there's always going to be a couple people in drafts that are going to take him higher. And I think we'll see that over the next few weeks. I think you're going to start to see him go in the 12 to 15 range.
Yeah, I mean, I think the upside is going to be there, and as we get those like workout hype videos that he's already putting out, proving to everybody that he's good to go. We released one last night of him and Mohamed Sanu already working together. So getting in with some of those New England Patriot teammates there. What's your take here on the potential of the NFL? Do cutting that get preseason down to 2 games? Do you think it has any sort of impact for you? Maybe your draft strategy when it comes to rookies, maybe new players and new teams, or we've seen some coaches with whole new systems. Now having less time to see how those players react in those game situations.
Yeah, not a major impact. I definitely think for the rookies, and we've kind of talked about that for a while. I don't worry about it as much with running backs, but wide receivers for sure. But we're not really seeing a lot of these rookie wide receivers go that high. I've been saying it for a while now. I kind of don't see any of these rookie receivers finishing in the top 30. Maybe there's one, but we're not really seeing these rookie wide receivers go at a high price tag anyway. They're generally going beginning maybe round 7, round 8.
Yeah.
So I think people are aware of that and are not pushing them up. We don't really see the starters much in the preseason anyway, but you have to imagine now, what are we going to see them? Maybe a quarter, maybe 2 quarters. It's supposed to be 2 games, one home, one away. So just like every sport right now, it's just kind of challenging. It's a unique situation that we've never experienced before. And each day it feels like there's new information coming out, and we just have to be ready to adjust. And it's going to make things complicated, but again, the goal here is to have fun. I've kind of been saying that with baseball. 60-game season is something that is just so different from what we're used to. But the goal of fantasy for most people is to have fun. We do want to win money. Trust me, I'm as cutthroat and competitive as it is. But in this baseball season, I think you do have to have a little bit of a different perspective and just, be happy that we're getting baseball back and just have fun. It's definitely going to be challenging, and I think it's going to be difficult, especially since we don't know these starting rotations, and it's best to be in a daily format this year. I know one of my leagues that didn't draft yet, we're going to be drafting the 20th, 21st, 22nd, one of those days. It was a weekly league, and they're going to daily transactions this year, which is probably the right move. But I know there are a lot of people who play in 10, 12 leagues and just don't want to do daily moves in every one of them.
Right. Yeah, baseball is definitely going to be interesting. For the league that you're drafting, does the 60-game season adjust your draft strategy at all? Any positions in particular you're maybe valuing higher than you were before?
A little bit. I mean, I think the top end guys, for the most part, I updated my rankings, and I'll continue to update them on FantasyAlarm.com as part of the Fantasy Baseball Draft Kit. I mean, a lot of it is going to depend on news that drops out. What are the roles for the starting pitchers? I mean, starting pitchers, I don't mind getting in elite arms. I mean, we've seen today Garrett Cole working out at Yankee Stadium, throwing 96, 97, 98. You saw him blow the ball past some hitters, regular starters in that lineup. So, again, it's just one situation. But, some starters might be able to go 5 innings early on. Cole, I would think, is definitely one of them, and you'll still see him go in the first round. So I have made slight adjustments. A lot's going to come down to the roles of the pitching. If it's a daily format, too, I want to have more relievers, because they have opportunities to get wins. They'll probably be used a little bit more. So I'll probably have mostly pitchers on my bench. The key here is you've got to get guys who play every day. None of these platoons, it's not going to work. If there's 5 righties, 2 lefties in a week, plus a lot of these starters are not going to go deep into games. They'll bring in the bullpen. These guys are going to get pinch hit for. So I want as many guys that play every day as much as possible. I mean, we know Tampa Bay is going to employ a lot of platoons. I mean, the Dodgers might. They have a lot of depth. So any of those guys that are in platoons, you just can't do it unless you're at a daily format. But even then, you lose some of the value because you don't want to have a guy on your team that at most you can play 4 days a week. You just don't have time here. You need to accumulate as many stats as possible. So, those will be the guys that I'm moving down. People are like, oh, this guy did this in 60 games. That's meaningless. Like someone asked me this week on Twitter, are there any slow starters that you're avoiding? It's completely different. Guys might start slow in April and May because of weather, So we're not having any weather issues now. We're going to start in warm weather. So I don't think you can look at like first half splits, second half splits, because I don't think it tells us anything.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, mostly just for fun, I think, and information on Twitter being like the best 60-game streak, war-wise was like Mike Trout. And this year, the worst, was like BJ Upton in like 04, Those things aren't really relevant to anything. It's just sort of showing you the potential highs and lows and how certain streaks can win you or lose you a season in this format. So that's going to be interesting. I also saw... I forget. I wish I had the coach exactly in mind, but one of the teams being like for the first couple of weeks, he said his starters may only go 2 to 4 innings, and like how that's going to certainly impact rotations early on in the season. So yeah, for a lot of people that have been asking me, I said the same thing. Target some strong relief pitching because they could be going out there and getting the majority of the work and spending up on some of those starters who may be limited for the first 2-3 times through the rotation, and there's a quarter of their starts maybe. So it'd definitely be interesting to see how this 60-game season plays out. Adam, you do a lot of high stakes baseball leagues. I assume you're also in high stakes football leagues as well, correct?
Yeah, I do. And there's a few different ones with different formats, so you kind of have to understand the scoring. The NFFC does 6 points for a passing touchdown. They also have 3rd round reversal. That was done because of years ago LaDainian Tomlinson being so dominant. So the way that works is if you pick last with the 12th pick, you get the first pick around 3. So you got the FFPC, which has the premium tight ends, 1.5 points per reception for a tight end. You got RT Sports, the FFWC, which adds the extra flex spot. So there's different formats, and you just kind of have to know what the intricacies are of the format that you're playing in, because there's really not one consistent same scoring format roster setup for any of them.
Is there sort of a different draft strategy for you when you're preparing for a high stakes league versus, maybe just a general friends league or home league that you're in, or maybe a different like lower level industry league? Like, when I see high stakes, the value of the buy-in, is there really a difference in the way you prepare for those drafts?
Yeah, I think you got to be a little aggressive sometimes if you really want a player. Whereas in a home league or even an industry league, you kind of know, all right, this guy's probably going to be here. Whereas in these leagues, especially when guys get helium, now you have to figure out, all right, is this guy worth it? Last year, a guy who got a ton of helium and kept moving up was Chris Godwin, and I was loving Chris Godwin last year. He was my breakout player of the year, and in a lot of early drafts, I was able to get him. But as we got to late August, it was really tough because he started moving into the second round.
Right.
And, that seemed a little bit high, but obviously it turned out he was worth it in the end. So you kind of have to figure out if you have any of those players, are they worth buying? We're seeing a guy, Calvin Ridley, really move up draft boards. Miles Sanders is a guy that's really moved up in the high stakes league. I've seen him go as early as the fourth pick overall.
Yeah.
I've seen some people debate whether he's a first round pick. I think he is. Would love to get him late in the first round if possible. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be a little bit more aggressive because most people that are in there are very knowledgeable and will go and get their guys. At the same time, you don't want to overpay too much. But not everyone that's in there is a great player. I mean, that's the thing is some people have money to burn. Some people, for them, $1,500, $1,800, $2,000, that's disposable income. As hard as it is to believe in this climate, but for some people it is. So there are some people that go in there and, think they're good, but they just have money to burn. Then there are others who will put in a ton of entries and invest a lot. So it allows them to kind of do different things in each league because they can, kind of spread their exposure to players across the board.
Yeah, all great points. And like I said, there's always a little bit of a different air, it seems like, around those high stake leagues, and the competition that you see some of the industry names that are in high stake leagues formats, and you wonder exactly what the competitive level is. I know obviously you, like you said, you're a bulldog when you're in those leagues. You play and fight till the very end. Your draft preparation very meticulous with it. So just the overall strategy behind it.
Yeah, the other thing that is really a big difference is the total points really matter, which benefited me last year because I was in the FFWC and I think I had 4 online championship leagues and I think I had a winning record in 1, but I was like near the top in points for all of them. I actually made the playoffs in 3 out of 4. I was like 5-8 with the most points in the league. So the points really matter there. Because that's how you play for the overall. The total points really matter. So you could have some bad luck and lose a couple of games to high-scoring teams, but if you have a ton of points, you could get in. So you just really have to know the player pool very well. You have to know the depth charts and be up to date on everything, just like most of us are. But also for the waiver wire, you kind of have to be 2 to 3 weeks out of the curve. It's the same thing in fantasy baseball where you're looking for the 2-star pitchers, and you kind of have to, if you want to have success, you got to pick them up 2 weeks in advance. Right. Obviously, rainouts and schedule changes, but you look and go, all right, well, this guy's scheduled for a 2-start week in 2 weeks. And he's going to get Baltimore and the Royals. All right, I'm going to pick him up this week for $1, $2, $3, stash him, and then this way, when everyone realizes, oh, this guy has 2 starts next week, now he's going for $60, $70. Right. Now you have him on your bench for cheap. And it's the kind of same thing in football. You kind of have to look ahead and speculate. Oh, well, you know what? This receiver played more snaps this week. He looked good. Maybe he surpasses this guy on the depth chart. Obviously, everyone stashes running backs. I mean, you'll see it throughout the draft, but you just need to, and you're not always going to get it right. You're going to speculate. I've done it a lot, $2, $3 here on a guy, put him on my bench, wait a couple weeks, it doesn't happen, cut him and move on to the next one. But you just kind of have to be a little bit ahead of the curve. This is not a situation where someone's waiver wire article comes out on Tuesday and everyone's writing about the same guy. That guy's probably already owned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely get that feedback a lot too. And for those that are in like deeper leagues or more competitive leagues, they're always saying, "Oh, this guy was picked up 2 weeks ago." It's like, well, his Yahoo ownership percentage is only like 4%. So for the majority of leagues, he's gone. But right, for those that are prepared, or those who understand their league formats, their league rules, they're certainly ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
there.
and I think that's and I've done these waiver wire articles, and the last one I did last year, I tried to just break it down by like 12-team league, or with roster
Yeah.
12-team leagues, 14-team leagues, leagues with 20 roster spots plus, because it is a challenging article to write because you don't know who the audience is. You might have a high stakes player looking at it. You might have a guy in a 10-team looking at it, and it does suck when they go, "Well, most of these guys owned in my league." Well, the article is covering a vast audience. So I think if you kind of do break it down, for like 10 to 12 team leagues and then leagues with 20 plus roster spots, it makes it a little bit more absorbed for everyone in the audience. But we have to remember, you're writing an article and everyone is in a different league. Some leagues,
Right.
60 roster spots, some 20, some are super flex, some are 10-team leagues. There might even be some 8-team leagues out there. There's 14 and 16 teams. So you're covering a wide base and you're trying to do the best possible.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a nightmare trying to do waiver wire articles for the running back position this year because given, how many running backs go, last night's best ball that I was in, I think it was 15 of the first 18 picks off the board were running backs. I know you prescribe to the, kind of wait on running back because there's so many great talent.
No.
Well,
In best
right.
ball,
I don't want to misquote you, so I'll let you go ahead and explain yourself.
In best ball, obviously, I'm going to try and take 2 running backs in the first 3 to 4 rounds because I know I can't go to the waiver wire.
Right.
And if it's a 20-round draft, I'm drafting 5 to 6 running backs.
Mm-hmm.
But in a redraft league like we did with the FSGA last week, I'm not as focused, especially if everyone's going to push running backs off the board and in my mind overpay for them. Mm-hmm. I know I can just go to the waiver wire. And last year was a bad example because we didn't get a lot of running backs emerge off the waiver wire. I mean, people were paying big money for like Ty Johnson, Bo Scarborough, because when Kerryon Johnson went down, and none of it really worked out. But just because that happened last year doesn't mean it's going to translate to this year. And the running back is a volatile position. We're going to see injuries. And also with COVID-19, we're probably going to see more guys sit out for potentially 2 to 3 weeks. So I just think we'll probably get more feasible options off the waiver wire this year. So again, I'd take a running back if I like the price. But I felt like in a lot of these drafts that I'm seeing that they're overpaying for running backs. And wide receiver is deep, but in a 14-team league like most of the FSGA drafts were, you start looking at the receivers round 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we can make a case for a lot of them, and there's some potential upside, but there's also a lot of downside as well.
Yeah. And to be fair, in that FSGA draft, you did start your draft off with Ezekiel Elliott. So you put yourself in a really good spot to begin the draft, and you had plenty of time to build up on that depth as the draft went on. I still can't believe you got A.J. Dillon in round, I think it was like 14 or something like that. Seeing where he went in all the other drafts where I'm seeing him go in best balls, the fact that he got on that late to me still was surprising given, how everybody was going after the running backs.
Yeah, I guess people are just kind of unsure of his role. Obviously, they drafted him in a pretty high spot, so you would think that he would surpass possibly Jamal Williams. But as we touched upon up top, it's going to be a little weird this year with the rookies not really getting much work, not to acclimate with their teammates, and maybe that pushes him behind a little bit. Again, for running backs, I don't worry about it as much. It was funny too in that draft because I've been pretty adamant about not taking 2 quarterbacks in a 16-round draft.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, Joe Burrow's here. I kind of want him because I had Daniel Jones, who has a very tough schedule to open up with Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Chicago. And I didn't take a backup. Burrow never made it back. So I was like, all right, I'll take Dillon, even though Ben Roethlisberger was there. I couldn't believe Ben Roethlisberger went around 15, but a lot of guys were not drafted in this league. In fact, I think only 21 quarterbacks were taken, which is my point to the whole thing. Like, I could just go to the waiver wire. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't drafted. He's got a good schedule to start. Cam Newton wasn't drafted. Obviously, the news broke after this. So that's my point, is I'd rather have an A.J. Dillon on the roster. What if Aaron Jones gets hurt in the preseason, and now all of a sudden he's the lead back or splitting with Jamal Williams? Now I don't have to go spend fab, and he's in my lineup. And I know there's going to be more options on the waiver wire for the quarterback position. It always happens. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was someone that emerged in the middle of the year last year that helped people win. So that was my whole point to that. And Joe Burrow was tempting, but I stuck with my plan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't blame you there either. And I like Daniel Jones as well. If the weapons around him can just stay healthy, like he's going to have a pretty good chance to succeed. The defenses are going to be keying in on stopping Saquon Barkley, so could open up a little bit for his ability to pass. One of the things I go back and forth with a lot with Ryan Hallen lately was everybody taking Gardner Minshew at the end of their draft as like their lone quarterback, and what kind of upside that he has. But I was actually surprised because I thought of him sort of as a backup, as a throwaway, but he averaged 16 and a half fantasy points per game last year as a quarterback. So his ability to run the football, which I didn't really give him any credit for, actually kind of boosted up his value. So kind of some decent value late in drafts as well at the quarterback position if you want to wait, which is something that I typically do myself as well.
Yeah, I was surprised there were a few teams. I think there was at least 2 or 3 teams that just drafted Minshew as their only quarterback. I don't know. I feel comfortable. It could work. I mean, again, they're going to be playing from behind.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great wide receiver in DJ Chark, so it's possible, that he can get it done. But I wouldn't feel comfortable with him as my only quarterback. But like I said, there's options on the waiver wire already. And maybe that's what those teams are planning. Like, all right, I'll go into the season with him and then maybe pick someone up off the waiver wire. Because as I said previously, I'm telling you right now, these teams with backup quarterbacks are going to drop them. You only have 16 roster spots. You just can't hold. It's hard to hold 2 quarterbacks with only 16 roster spots the entire season. I know people will say, well, COVID-19, well, doesn't that make the same situation at the other positions where you need more depth? It's much easier to find a quarterback on the waiver wire. So it happened last year. In the league I was in, 14 teams. I drafted 1 cornerback, Jameis Winston, and someone dropped Josh Allen, and I picked him up.
That was a good pickup.
It's going to happen.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that one. Let's transition here. Let's finish up today's live stream talking the NBA, something you and I are obviously very fond of. We've obviously hit up some of the playoff matchups, given our thoughts on how we think this may play out. But you and I are also big in the betting scene of the NBA as well. Before we jumped on here, you were mentioning that you do have a couple wagers here on 8 seed teams making the playoffs. So why don't we jump into some of the prop bets, some of the futures bets we see here with the NBA? Give me some of your favorites that you are currently targeting.
Yeah, look, I think it's really difficult to do these futures right now because of just so much uncertainty. We don't know who has, we know some players have COVID, but then there was a report today, 9 more players tested. Yeah. We haven't found out who. So there's still a chance, I guess, that some guys can sit. Bradley Beal said he's undecided. I think it's more of a medical issue, though, with the medical staff. But, yeah, the other night, we found out with the Nets, DeAndre Jordan was not playing. Spencer Dinwiddie has COVID-19, is questionable. He tweeted out, I think it was yesterday, I've never been in bed this much. So the Nets, to me, are a team that's just kind of falling apart right now. And I looked at their schedule, and it's difficult. I could see them going 1-7. So I did put money on the Wizards at plus 1,300 to get in as the 8th seed, which is still a long shot. Davis Bertans is sitting out for them. So Bradley Beal better play or I'm in trouble. And their schedule is kind of difficult too. But I think if they can win, even go 500 and Nets win 1, they get to that play-in game and they could beat the Nets twice. I mean, if the Nets fall apart, they made the coaching change. Wilson Chandler's out too. So it's a long shot, but I did see that line moved. It was actually plus 1,700 on FanDuel Sportsbook and is now down to plus 900. So it's a long shot. I wouldn't put a ton of money on it, and the line did move, so I don't know. It's still decent at plus 900, but I was able to get it at plus 1,300 on DK. And I was looking at the West. Initially, everyone's on the Pelicans, and I like the Pelicans. They're a fun team to watch. I kind of, from a fan perspective or to see the best NBA game, I'd rather see Portland get in because we know how Damian Lillard can carry a team in the playoffs, and they're getting Yusuf Nurkic back, Zach Collins back. So I think they're a dangerous team, but their schedule is kind of tough. I kind of think the Pelicans are going to get in now. I actually think they're going to finish as the 8th seed, and if there's a play-in game, that they're going to only have to win 1. Now, here's the key. So this is the Grizzlies' schedule. Portland, Spurs, Pelicans. So 2 of the first 3 huge games. Right. Utah, which is a team that has some question marks with Bogdanovic being out.
Hard, yeah.
Yeah, Gobert and Mitchell's relationship. OKC, Toronto, and now this is the key for the Grizzlies. Boston and Milwaukee finish. What does Boston need at that point? Do they already have a matchup they like? Are they going to sit guys? Obviously, there's no home court, so it comes down to what teams feel for matchups. And then the last game is Milwaukee, and I cannot imagine Milwaukee needing that game at all. They should lock up the 1 seed pretty quickly. So I could see Milwaukee sitting their starters there. So that might work out well for Memphis in the end. But I could see them winning just 2-3 games with that schedule. Then you look at the Pelicans. They have Utah, the Clippers, which is their toughest game. The Grizzlies, which obviously is basically a playoff game for them anyway. Sacramento, the Wizards, the Spurs, the Kings, and the Magic. I could see them going 7-1, 6-2. So if I was to put money on anything, I would put it on the Pelicans to make it.
Yeah, I mean, Pelicans are one of the teams I picked early on myself. One, because I just love the narrative in general, having the possibility of seeing, Lakers Pelicans. I think would be one of the most watched series of the NBA playoffs. Having the whole narrative of AD versus the whole team. You have the Zion appeal, Ingram Ball and whatnot. Can't imagine, LeVar Ball having his son in the playoffs and the spectacle that he may become when it comes to media hot takes there, especially if they go on and beat LA. Oh man, that guy's going to be a song clip for life. I am very happy.
Do you want to see that happen? I don't.
I like.
No,
I like
man.
The I like the theater. I do.
Yeah, I want to see LeBron make that push for a ring, man. What do you hate LeBron?
Oh, well, I mean, I am a Celtics fan, so I don't dislike LeBron in the sense of I don't dislike him as a person, but I don't really want to see him succeed often in basketball. So, yeah. There's a little hatred bias there for me when it comes to going up against LeBron James.
I want to see Lakers Clippers, man.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, I understand. I get it. I as a basketball purist, I understand the appeal to having Lakers Clippers, having Kawhi and George versus AD and LeBron, but I'm tired of LeBron. I don't need to see him win anymore. We've seen LeBron in the finals now, 8 out of the last 9 years, it seems like. Something insane. It's like how everybody had Patriots fatigue. I have LeBron James fatigue right now when it comes to seeing him in the finals. So I'm out on LeBron. Give me an upset. Get some new blood in the Western Conference there. I'll take the Pelicans all day. I am happy that Brad Stevens said that none of the Celtics currently have COVID, and they all plan on going into Orlando for the bubble as a full team. Because, to me, the Celtics, their flaw this year has really been the bench. But once you get into the playoffs, they're going to have a shortened bench. Everybody's seemingly and supposedly healthy. Kemba Walker's knee is good enough that he's going to be able to play. So you're looking at the starting five of Tatum, Brown, Hayward, Walker, and Tice with Marcus Smart off the bench, Enes Kanter potentially off the bench. If that's the rotation that they're going to go with, the Celtics have a chance to jump into that number 2 seed. Do they have what it takes to beat Milwaukee? We'll see, because Giannis is a freak. But the way Tatum finished those 20 games before the shutdown, averaging 28.5 points per game, 50% shooting, 45 from 3. I'm pretty excited about the prospects of Boston there, and they're only plus 700 to win the conference. So not an awful bet on my behalf.
Such a homer, man.
I can't be that big of a homer. I am wearing a Cleveland Browns t-shirt this time. So,
yeah.
It's not like I'm wearing a Patriots shirt.
I actually do like the Celtics at plus 700 to win the Eastern Conference because you can always hedge that. So if they do get there and they're playing Milwaukee, you just throw some money on the other side with Milwaukee and you're a winner. So I haven't done it yet. I'm kind of waiting because I don't think that line's going to move that much anyway. So it's not like, if I don't get it now, it's going to move to plus 500. I don't think so. But I just want to make sure that everyone is healthy. I know that's the report now, but I'll wait.
Steven said it 2 days ago. He said everybody's healthy and everybody's planning on playing. So
but they get down in the bubble and all of a sudden 3 guys have it. So
right.
I kind of just want to wait on that. And I think futures are difficult right now in any sport, just because you feel good, you make a point, and then all of a sudden, boom, a bunch of guys are out. So I don't know if you saw today, the Phillies placed Hector Neris, Scott Kingery on the injured list with no explanation. I think we know what it is. They have COVID-19.
They said they're not allowed to announce if they have COVID or something like that, right? Yeah, which is crazy because you can announce when someone has the flu. They say people are on the DL for the flu all the time, but now they can't say COVID, which is odd. So right. the biggest thing we all have to worry about really is whether or not COVID is going to impact some of these guys. And they could go in, they could play a game, play 2 games, you get your bed, and the next thing you know, half the team's infected, like you said, and where do you go from there? So
yeah, and I think it was Damian Lillard who said he's worried about players adhering to all these rules.
Yeah,
So I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, they're allowed to do what they want, travel. Now all of a sudden, all right, you're here for a couple months, depending on how far your team goes, and your activities are limited.
They just need to set up like daily video game tournaments for all of them because they're all huge gamers.
Yeah,
so just send up like Call of Duty, NBA 2K, like tournaments together.
Well, where are they getting their booty from, man? Like I've had this argument with people. They're like, "Oh, well, it's only a couple months. You can deal with it." It's different. They're not. They don't live. They don't live like us, man.
They're bringing in chefs and barbers and maybe they'll just bring some girls in for Harden or something. I don't know.
I mean, look, if I would go to the NBA and say, "Hey, I want to open up a strip club in this bubble and just have chicks down and test it." I mean, you'd profit so much. I don't know why anyone hasn't thought of this, or maybe it's there and they can't.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Keep it on the DL.
Yeah. So I'll see if I can get some inside sources, and that would make James Harden more appealing. Although we've kind of seen those stats depending on the city, right? Where
and if he's getting to pick his selection, then it could be downhill for him there for sure. So,
but yeah, it just makes everything a wild card, which is why just be careful with the futures bets. Don't go crazy on it yet because you can make a wager. I mean, I have the Clippers to win, but I did that back in January, so yeah. I'm sticking with that for now. So, hey, if the Pelicans do beat the Lakers in the first round, should that happen, it'd actually be pretty good for me because to me, the Clippers. Then again, I don't want to say they can walk. This is a wild year, man. We just don't know. It is like a new season. We just don't know who's in shape. So it seems like it's easy, but we just don't know.
Yeah, I hear you there. Well, Adam, our time is coming to an end here. So as we finish off, any final thoughts you want to go before we leave?
No, I just hope everybody enjoys the holiday weekend. We've seen, I don't know about you, but there have been fireworks around me for like the last month.
They've been shooting out fireworks. I mean, fireworks are illegal in Massachusetts. I don't know if they're illegal in New Jersey or else, but I live right behind sort of like a big parking lot, basically. So they've been shooting them off in the parking lot, terrifying my dog for the last week or so. But 4th of July is here. Let me ask you, because Jen and I went over this on our 3-point play the other day. What's your go-to 4th of July food?
Hot dogs and burgers, man. Barbecue, man.
Yeah, I said hot dogs. She said apple pie. So
apple pie.
Yeah. So I thought that one kind of threw me for a loop, but I was all about the hot dogs for sure. So
apple pie, put bananas on top, right, Jen?
Yeah. She said she liked ice cream. She's like, ice cream, apple pie. I'm like, yeah, dessert's great. But to me, burgers and dogs, especially a hot dog, you got a hot dog in one here, a beer in the other, and you can enjoy the 4th of July. So, Adam, have a good 4th of July the weekend, and we'll be talking to you.
Definitely, man. You too.
All right, FA Nation, we'll talk to you later. Bye.